In my 35 years on the bench here in Providence, Rhode Island, I've seen thousands of cases walk through my courtroom doors. I've heard every excuse, every hardship story, every plea for mercy you can imagine. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened on a cold Tuesday morning when a 12-year-old girl handed me a letter that would break my heart into a million pieces. If this story touches you like it touched me, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happened next restored my faith in humanity. Let me tell you something, my friends. By the end of this, you'll understand why I became a judge in the first place. The case file that morning looked routine enough. A parking violation, $25. The defendant's name was Sarah Martinez, age 34. What caught my eye immediately was that she'd requested her daughter be allowed to speak on her behalf. Now, I've been doing this long enough to know that when a parent brings a child to court, there's usually something more going on beneath the surface. I could see them sitting in the gallery. A woman with tired eyes wearing a nurse's uniform probably came straight from a night shift, and beside her a small girl with long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, clutching a folded piece of paper like it was the most precious thing in the world. "Sarah Martinez," I called out, and I watched as they both stood up. The mother's hands were trembling slightly. The daughter, I would learn her name was Emily, held her mother's hand and walked with her to the bench. Something about the way that little girl carried herself, with such determination, despite obvious nervousness, reminded me of my own granddaughter. I felt my heart soften before they even spoke a word. "Good morning," I said warmly, trying to put them at ease. "I'm Judge Caprio. Now, Mrs. Martinez, I see here you're contesting a parking ticket issued 3 months ago on Westminster Street. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I could hear the exhaustion in those 3 words. "And who do we have here?" I asked, smiling at the young girl whose eyes were fixed on me with an intensity that was almost unsettling. "This is my daughter, Emily. She asked if she could explain what happened that day. If that's allowed, Your Honor." I leaned back in my chair. In all my years, I've learned that the most important cases aren't always the ones involving the biggest fines or the most serious violations. Sometimes justice happens in the quiet moments when you simply listen. "Of course it's allowed," I told them. "Emily, would you like to come up here and talk to me?" The girl nodded and approached the bench. Inspector Quinn, who's been with me for more years than I can count, gave me one of those looks, the kind that says, "Judge, this is going to be something special." He was right. "Your Honor," Emily began, her voice stronger than I expected, "I wrote you a letter. Can I read it to you?" "You wrote me a letter?" I felt a lump forming in my throat already. "Of course you can read it, sweetheart." She unfolded that paper with such care, and I noticed her hands were shaking. "Before I share with you what was in that letter, let me ask you to do something for me. If you believe children see the world more clearly than we adults sometimes do, leave a comment below telling me about a time a child taught you something important, and hit that like button, because what this young lady was about to say changed everyone in that courtroom." Emily cleared her throat and began to read. "Dear Judge Caprio, my name is Emily Martinez and I am 12 years old. I am writing to you about my mom's parking ticket. I watch your show with my grandma and she always says you are fair and you listen to people's stories. So I wanted to tell you our story." I had to smile at that. Here was this child who'd been watching, caught in Providence with her grandmother, and now she was standing in my actual courtroom. God works in mysterious ways. She continued. "The day my mom got the parking ticket was March 15th. I remember the exact date because it was the worst day of my life until it became the best day of my life." She paused and I could see tears beginning to form in her eyes. "That morning I couldn't wake up. My mom tried to get me up for school, but I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't feel them at all. My mom started crying and called 911, but the ambulance was taking too long. There was traffic because of construction. Mom made a decision. She picked me up. I'm heavy, but she picked me up like I weighed nothing, and she put me in our car. I felt my chest tighten. I glanced at Sarah Martinez, whose face was streaked with silent tears. The courtroom had gone absolutely still. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom drove me to Rhode Island Hospital as fast as she could. She pulled up right in front of the emergency room entrance. There were signs that said no parking, but she didn't care. She carried me inside and started yelling for help. The doctors came running. They took me straight back for tests." Emily's voice cracked. "They found a tumor on my spine, Judge Caprio. The doctor said if we had waited even 30 more minutes, I might have been paralyzed forever. Maybe I wouldn't have walked again. But because my mom got me there so fast, they could do emergency surgery. I had to remove my glasses and wipe my eyes. I wasn't ashamed of it. I've never been ashamed to show emotion in my courtroom. We're all human beings here. I looked around and saw the prosecutor dabbing at his eyes with a tissue. The bailiff was staring at the floor, his jaw clenched. Inspector Quinn's eyes were glistening. Your Honor, Emily continued, her voice growing stronger even as tears rolled down her cheeks. While my mom was inside the hospital with me, holding my hand before surgery, someone gave her car a parking ticket. $25. My mom didn't even know about it until 2 weeks later when she checked the mail. She was so busy taking care of me after my surgery, driving me to physical therapy every day, helping me learn to walk again, that she forgot about the ticket. She missed the payment deadline. What am I going to do with this? I thought to myself. Here's a mother who'd saved her daughter's life, who'd made the only choice any parent would make, and now she's standing in my courtroom for a parking violation. The letter of the law said she'd parked illegally. She'd missed the payment deadline, but what does the spirit of the law say? What does justice really mean? If you're still with me, share this video right now with someone who needs to be reminded that there are still good people in this world doing their best. Trust me, you'll want them to hear what happened next. Emily looked directly into my eyes. Judge Caprio, I know my mom broke the parking rule, but she was saving my life, and now I can walk again. I can run and play and go to school. Last week I made the honor roll. My mom has the certificate at home. We wanted to bring it to show you that we're a good family. We try to do the right thing. My mom works 2 jobs as a nurse to pay for my physical therapy bills. The insurance doesn't cover everything. We don't have a lot of money, but we have each other. The girl's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Your Honor, if my mom has to pay this ticket and the late fees, that's money we need for my next doctor's appointment. But I want to tell you something more important than the money. I want you to know that my mom is a hero. She saved my life that day. When I grow up, I want to be just like her, someone who helps people no matter what, even if they get in trouble for it. So I'm asking you, please, to forgive my mom's parking ticket, not because we can't pay it, but because she did the right thing. She chose me over a parking space. Wouldn't you do the same thing for your child? When she finished reading, Emily folded the letter carefully and looked up at me with those big, hopeful eyes. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of people trying not to sob out loud. I saw a woman in the gallery openly crying. A man in the back had his hand over his heart. Let me ask you something. What would you have done in my position? Before I tell you my decision, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because the stories that come through this courtroom remind us all of what really matters in life. I took a deep breath. Emily, I said, my voice thick with emotion, come here, sweetheart. She walked closer to the bench. In my 35 years as a judge, I have never received a more beautiful, more powerful letter than the one you just read to me. You write with the wisdom of someone much older, and you speak with a heart full of love for your mother. That tells me everything I need to know about the kind of family you are. I turned to Sarah Martinez. Mrs. Martinez, I want to ask you some questions about that day. When you pulled up to that emergency room entrance, were you thinking about parking regulations? No, Your Honor, she said, her voice breaking. I was only thinking about Emily. I was terrified I was going to lose my daughter. And you're a nurse, correct? You work at, I glanced at the file, you work at 2 different healthcare facilities? Yes, Your Honor. I work nights at Memorial Hospital and pick up shifts at a nursing home on weekends. I'm a single mother. Emily's father passed away 4 years ago from cancer. It's just the 2 of us. We do our best. My God, this woman had lost her husband, nearly lost her daughter, worked herself to exhaustion caring for others, and here she was in my courtroom worried about a $25 parking ticket. What kind of world are we living in, where heroes have to apologize for saving lives? Mrs. Martinez, let me tell you something about my own father, I said, feeling the weight of memory. My father came to this country from Italy with nothing but love for his family and a willingness to work hard. He taught me that family comes first, always. He taught me that sometimes the rules have to bend when humanity demands it. Your daughter is right. You are a hero. You made the only choice a mother could make. I picked up my pen. The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. I'm going to do something now, and I want you to understand why. The law says you parked illegally. The law says you missed the payment deadline, but I've been doing this long enough to know that the law is meant to serve justice, not to punish people for acts of love and desperation. I wrote across the ticket in bold letters, dismissed. Mrs. Martinez, your parking ticket is dismissed. You don't owe this court a single penny. In fact, this court owes you a debt of gratitude for being the kind of mother every child deserves. The courtroom erupted. People started clapping. I heard someone shout, "God bless you, Judge." Emily burst into tears and threw her arms around her mother. Sarah Martinez was sobbing so hard she could barely stand. Inspector Quinn walked over and handed them a box of tissues, his own eyes red-rimmed. But I wasn't finished. "Wait, please, everyone. I have more to say." The room quieted again. Emily, your letter mentioned that your mother has medical bills, that the insurance doesn't cover everything. Is that correct? Emily nodded, wiping her tears. Yes, sir. The physical therapy costs a lot, and Mom has to take me to Boston every 3 months for checkups with the specialist. I thought of my own health journey, the times I'd faced uncertainty and fear, and how grateful I was for the support of my community. I made a decision in that moment that had nothing to do with the law and everything to do with being human. Here's what we're going to do, I said. I want Inspector Quinn to get your contact information. Our Caught in Providence show has a community fund for situations exactly like this. We're going to help with those medical expenses, and I'm going to personally make some calls to see if we can get you connected with resources to help cover Emily's ongoing treatment costs. Now Sarah Martinez completely broke down. She was crying so hard she couldn't speak. Emily was hugging her, and both of them were shaking with emotion. I had to take a moment myself. I pulled out my handkerchief, the one my wife had embroidered with my initials, and wiped my eyes unashamedly. Your Honor, Sarah finally managed to say, I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. You don't have to thank me, I told her. You thank your daughter for having the courage to write that letter. You thank yourself for being an incredible mother. And you thank God for giving Emily a second chance at life. If this story has moved you the way it moved me and everyone in that courtroom, do me a favor right now. Leave a comment telling me about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness. And please share this video with your friends and family, because in this world that can sometimes seem so harsh and uncaring, we need to celebrate the good people. We need to remember that compassion matters. Emily approached the bench again. Judge Caprio, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. You can ask me anything. Can I give you a hug? Now, I'm a judge. I'm supposed to maintain a certain decorum, a certain professional distance, but I'm also a grandfather. I'm also a human being who knows that sometimes a hug is the most important thing in the world. You come right around here, I told her. She walked around to my side of the bench, and I stood up and bent down to embrace this remarkable young girl. She hugged me so tight, and she whispered in my ear, Thank you for seeing that my mom is good. Thank you for caring. I had to fight to keep my composure. You are both good, I whispered back. Don't you ever forget that. You keep being brave. You keep working hard in school, and you take care of your mama, okay? I will, I promise. As they prepared to leave the courtroom, I called out to them one more time. Mrs. Martinez, Emily, before you go, I want to tell you something I've learned in my 3.5 decades on this bench. The law is important, rules matter, order matters, but do you know what matters more than all of that? Love. The love between a parent and child. The love that makes us willing to risk everything for the people we care about. That's what I saw here today. That's what your letter showed me, Emily. Never lose that love. Never lose that courage to stand up for what's right. We won't, Your Honor, Emily said. Can I ask one more thing? What is it, honey? Can we take a picture with you? My grandma will never believe this happened. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh that felt good after so many tears. Of course we can. Inspector Quinn, can you help us out here? We took several pictures together. In one of them, I'm holding Emily's letter. In another, I have my arms around both of them. Those photographs would end up meaning more to me than almost any others taken in my courtroom. They sit on my desk to this day, reminding me why I do this work. After they left, after the next case was called, after the morning session ended, I sat alone in my chambers and read Emily's letter again, every word of it. I thought about my own father, who'd worked himself to exhaustion to provide for our family. I thought about my own children and grandchildren and what I would do if any of them faced what Emily had faced. There was never any question, really, about what the right decision was. That evening, the video of the hearing was posted to our Caught in Providence social media channels. Within hours, it had been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. By the next morning, it had reached millions. People from around the world sent messages. Some shared their own stories of medical emergencies and impossible choices. Others sent donations to help with Emily's medical expenses. A specialist in Boston reached out offering to see Emily at no charge. A physical therapy center in Providence offered free sessions. But here's what touched me most. Dozens of teachers sent messages saying they'd shown the video to their students to talk about courage, about advocacy, about standing up for the people you love. Emily's letter became an example of how powerful words can be when they come from the heart. 3 months later, I received another letter. This time it was from Emily's grandmother, the one who'd watched the show with Emily. She told me that Emily had made the honor roll again, that Sarah had been promoted at work, that Emily's last checkup showed she was doing wonderfully, no signs of tumor recurrence, full mobility restored. The grandmother wrote, "You gave my daughter and granddaughter more than a dismissed ticket that day. You gave them hope. You reminded them that the world still has good people in it. You reminded all of us. I keep both letters in a folder in my desk drawer. On difficult days, when I'm tired, when the cases seem endless, when I wonder if what I do really matters, I take out those letters and I read them again. They remind me that justice isn't just about applying the law mechanically. It's about seeing the people in front of you. It's about understanding that every case, no matter how small it seems, involves real human beings with real struggles and real triumphs. Emily is 15 now. Her mother sent me a card last Christmas with a photo. Emily is tall, healthy, beautiful, playing on her school's soccer team. The caption on the back read, "Thank you for believing in us." Emily wants to be a lawyer now. She says she wants to help people the way you helped us. Let me tell you what I learned from that 12-year-old girl and her remarkable mother. I learned that courage doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes courage looks like an exhausted nurse carrying her paralyzed daughter into an emergency room and worrying about the parking ticket later. Sometimes courage looks like a child standing in a courtroom and telling the truth with eloquence that would shame most adults. I learned that the most important cases we hear aren't always the ones that make the law books. They're the ones that make us remember we're human first and judges second. They're the ones where the right decision has nothing to do with legal precedent and everything to do with basic decency. I learned that children can be our greatest teachers if we're humble enough to listen to them. Emily taught everyone in that courtroom about love, about priorities, about what really matters when everything else is stripped away. And I learned once again why I'm grateful every single day that I get to serve as a judge. Not because of the power or the authority, but because occasionally, just occasionally, I get the privilege of making a decision that changes someone's life for the better. That reminds them the system can work. That shows them compassion still exists in this world. If you've watched this far, I want to ask you something. What would you have done if you were in my position that day? Would you have applied the letter of the law, or would you have listened to your heart? Leave me a comment and let me know, because these conversations matter. They remind us all to think about what justice really means. And please, if this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button if you believe that love and compassion should guide our decisions. Because every time you share stories like Emily's, you're spreading a message that the world desperately needs, that good people still exist, that heroes walk among us in nurses' uniforms and school clothes, that sometimes the smallest cases have the biggest impact. God bless you all. God bless Sarah and Emily Martinez. And remember, in my courtroom and in life, we're all just trying to do our best for the people we love. That's not a crime. That's not something to punish. That's something to celebrate, to honor, and to protect. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. You never know when someone in front of you is fighting a battle that requires every ounce of courage they have. Be kind, be compassionate, and remember that justice without mercy isn't justice at all. It's just rules on paper. Now, I've got another case coming up next week that you won't believe. A veteran with a story that'll make this one look simple. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, because if there's one thing I've learned in 35 years, it's that humanity has an infinite capacity to surprise us. Sometimes it breaks our hearts, and sometimes, like with Emily and Sarah, it reminds us why we should never stop believing in people. God bless you.